Woo! It's your boy Carcino here, man, and people don't know, when back in the days, I came up from the days where you had to write. There was no internet, nothing. You already know that. So, in those days coming up, the people that was around us in the early 90s, we were very fortunate to be surrounded by different cultures. See, mostly when we grew up in the hood as kids, most people around us was all black. So that's all we knew, really. We didn't really know about other people's cultures. Once we got a little older, we moved in other neighborhoods and different areas and stuff. You get to see different cultures. And we had Koreans with us. We had mostly Hispanics. We had whites. So you get to see other races and other cultures, so you learn different things. And the Koreans, they all roll tight. All roll tight together as a unit. And anybody had a problem, they all go to the oldest, who was like in charge of all of them. And Big Mac was that guy. You know, he was down to earth, in charge, no nonsense. Everybody's on point. So, next thing you know, we meet all of them. You see, they all into hip hop. Every single one of them. They love it. They got Korean clubs they go to and internet cafes, and it's hip hop, it's this, and then you starting to see a culture. Then one of them ended up becoming one of the greatest rappers I've probably heard in a long time, Spiral. Everybody called him Chino because they say he looked Chinese, but Spiral was incredible. Like, he was deep with his thoughts, and everything that he spoke was English. And he could speak, he was dual language. He could speak Korean, but he mostly spoke English. So he could speak slang and understand it and could translate that over into Korean rap. And this was in the 90s. And when Korean rap was really starting to, like, it wasn't a big thing. It was good, it was out there, but not on the scale it is now. But he was here trying to get a deal, and him and Jen had hooked up, and they were supposed to, do some work together. I don't know what happened there. My friend Mom was trying to manage him out in California, and long story short, that was my first introduction into Korean hip-hop, because he would have all these instrumentals, and he had these songs that was completely in Korean. They were hip-hop, but completely in Korean dialect, everything. And it was a guy named E Sens and a guy named Gaeko from Dynamic Duo. He had them, and this is like going up the ladder. We're in the 2000 new millennium area, and now you got these guys coming out. And Taxi Driver was the biggest thing in Korean hip hop world at this time. And this is back when Korean hip-hop is starting to grow. Because a lot of people got to see a lot of different things during this time. It was a storm wave of culture coming through, and hip-hop was one of the things that was getting to the mainstream in South Korea. From America to South Korea. And when the World Cup, hosting South Korea, it was a lot of parties was thrown, and a lot of hip hop music was played, and there was a lot of Korean hip hop music played. That people started making mixtapes, and when the internet was going into a streaming phase, people from South Korea streaming music back and forth. It's getting out to these spots here where the Koreans were. Like, I would be at the internet cafe just to use the MySpace. I'll be the only one playing MySpace. On the MySpace, everybody else is like 3 a.m. They on the keyboards playing a video game. They all connected. I'm like, oh man, yeah, this is not for me. But I became cool with the owners at the Kachi PC, and we got it in. Like, as far as that, then here it is, E Sens, and they're giving me the whole rundown of what's going on. Like, dude, this dude E Sens is raw. And then he hipped up with Simon D. And now they the supreme team. So this guy named Simon D was his partner, and they linked up and started rapping together, him and E Sens. And E Sens and them, they became the Supreme Team, and Dynamic Duo, you know, had Gaeko and all them, and they had the biggest selling Korean album of all time in 2004. They bought a record label, teamed up with these other people, and started a record label so they could start putting out artists called Ambio or something like that. Ambio Records, or Ambia, or something, Amobia, or something. I don't know, but it's something like that. Amobia Records. And once they putting them out, they signed them to individual contracts. Simon D was signed, and so was E Sens. So there wasn't a group called the Supreme Team. It was just how they promoted them. You know, Dynamic Duo was actually a group before Gaeko went solo. Now, fast forwarding, as they're going through the motions of being, you know, the super group that they were called, the Supreme Team, problems are ensuing. They're painting them and promoting them as like this pop group and pop culture group, and they're the new pop sensation. Yeah, come look at, you know, the pop sensation Supreme Team. This don't fit E Sens style. E Sens is a hustler. You know what I'm saying? He came up, his father died when he was 9. You know, his mom was single, it was just him and his sisters. And, you know, he had to become a hustler to make it. You know, so he's slaying a couple of, you know, weed bags here and there. So he had cases fighting from a weed bust and all this stuff. And as the business side of it, they tried to get him to resign, and he was like, I don't think I'm gonna resign, because he kind of have ideas about going forward. So they were like, okay. Then he got a case, and they're like, you know what, we ain't gonna resign him anyway, so just let his contract play on out and just let him go his own way, because they like, yeah, he's not gonna be around long. So they all said, and this is what gets me, every time somebody says, you know what, I decided to leave and not resign, and they informed me today that my contract's expired and I'm a free agent, they're gonna do their thing, I'm gonna do my thing, I wish them nothing but the best. Amazing when that happens, a storm brews. A storm comes out of nowhere right behind that. Everybody says the most beautiful things about each other when they leaving. And you're saying to yourself, if everything was so wonderful, why they couldn't work anything out? So he left in July of 2013. In August, Big Sean came out with the song Control with the verse from Kendrick Lamar. Everybody remembers Control and how big it got for Kendrick. And something amazing happened when that happened. When that happened, it shot all the way overseas to South Korea and became the biggest phenomenon anybody has ever heard of, and this country's never heard of. E Sens got on that beat. Swings did it first. He did it on the, August, about 2 weeks later, after the song was out. Swings, another Korean rapper, got involved. He made a diss track going at some other people with that beat. E Sens the next day came out with the song You Can't Control Me, going after Gaeko and that entire label, dissing them. And I mean, he was putting laser points on everything, talking about you guys tried to cut my Achilles and give me crutches. You want me to pay you $1 million? Man, F you. So he's basically calling him out and said Gaeko always was afraid of him, always avoiding him. He didn't ever want to be around E Sens because he knew E Sens was the better rapper than him. So with this phenomenon, it was a phenomenon of people using the control beat, dissing each other back and forth. It was crazy. And then Swings come back dissing somebody else with a part 2 of the same beat. Now he's going after Simon D for the Supreme team. So Swings is in here going at it. I mean, he got the beat, he's going in. Gaeko broke his silence 2 days later and comes out with I Can Control You. And oh man, did that go off. I Can't Control You, talking about you just selling marijuana to upcoming artists and you screwing up. You supposed to take a dump on the company and we supposed to fix it for you, huh? Oh man, he was going in like I am the role model. And so he's like, I'm a businessman, I'm a role model, and so I'm your role model. You know, like, oh man, he was just sunning him in the game because Gaeko basically brought this to the table with the largest selling hip hop album in Korean history. You know, so then E Sens come back with True Story, and it was getting out of control. So at the end of the month, the record label said, look, this thing is spiraling out of control, and we want to end all these exchanges of diss tracks now. We're shutting it down. And about the end of the month, anybody using that control beat, they were going to get beat down. Everything was done. You could not use that beat anymore. It was a phenomenon in South Korea. Every rapper was dissing each other, and they was using the control beat, and it was just nuts. I'm like, when is this going to stop? Everybody's using the same beat, and they're going at each other's throats. So Gaeko just released some more records and did what he was doing. They all stayed quiet. But E Sens came out with one of his greatest accomplishments in a long time, where he talked about his life. And you gotta, if you go on YouTube, you can see the songs, but it's mostly you gotta use the English subtitles in order to read the content. You'll be able to follow it. It moves pretty fast, but the Antidote, that full album won Best Album, Korean Album of the Year, and 2015 and 16 have been the biggest years ever in the history of Korean hip hop. So, with that being said, they have really pushed the envelope to go forward, and these guys are listening to your music in South Korea. So that's what I'm trying to say. You guys are very influential as to what happens, not just here and on your block. You're going to transcend over the country. And these guys are emulating what you're doing, musically. So just to let you know that for all you guys that's out there that's rapping, there are people watching you around this country that look up to you, who expect you to, to really bring it. Because lyrically, they are so far ahead of you.